Well, tonight, first before we get started, I want to share another resource with you. I handed out Tactics last week, which is a great book in being worried about some of those difficult questions that you could be asked. This is similar, but it's a little bit more broad than that. This is by Randy Newman. He's on staff with InterVarsity Christian Fellowship, and he wrote a book I think is really helpful. It's called Questioning Evangelism. He's not questioning what evangelism is. It's more of using the questions in evangelism, and really even just he's looking at Jesus and how Jesus is interacting people in the Gospels. And a lot of times Jesus is asked a question, and what does Jesus do? He asks a question in response, right? And trying to engage and understand. And he's someone that ministers on college campuses and gets all kinds of questions and things. And I mean, he tells the one story in here that he was, someone, I think it was with a fraternity or dorm or something. And they're like, you're a Christian, right? So why does God send people to hell? And he's like, well, do you believe in God? And he goes, no, I think the idea of God is ridiculous. I'm like, well, then that question would be ridiculous. Why are you asking about something you think is ridiculous? And someone else said, well, actually, I believe in God. Right? So then why would he send people to hell? And he's like, well, tell me, do you, who do you think is in hell? Do you think anyone's in hell? And he's like, I don't know. Do you think no one's there? No, there's got to be some people there. Some people are really bad. Oh, that's really interesting. Tell me how bad you have to be. Right? And so in engaging in those ways, you could see what smoke screens or what's not. And then you can also follow up and engaging. And then he gives some different examples, and some are stronger than others, of different ways to engage in questions and thinking through topics and worldviews there. So I think it's a neat resource. I think it's a very helpful resource. So I wanted to highlight that, Questioning Evangelism. So if there's someone who would be interested in reading that as a resource, I will give this copy away. Anyone? Oh, all right. Here we go. All right. Well, tonight, what we are going to do is we're going to be looking at two more evangelism models. As we talked about earlier on in this fall, that evangelism is about the message, not about the method. Right? Evangelism is about the message, the good news of Jesus Christ. And as we look in the New Testament, especially in Acts, we see a lot of different ways, methods, that message is communicated. We see it by asking questions. We see it by Paul, week after week, reasoning with people, talking with people, engaging with people. We see it in brief conversations. The Philippian jailer saying, what must I do to be saved? And Paul explains it in just a few words, right? We want to be, but it's the same message. So we want to be understanding of different methods that we can use and packaging, you could say, of explaining that message. And so we're going to have two other examples tonight. And here's what I really am encouraged by, and why I wanted these two brothers to share, is because it's not that these methods are just something they studied and they just kind of tell people about, but it's because these are things that they use themselves. Right? I'm tired. It's late on Wednesday. So these are methods they use. As you just heard with Don, 3 circles is something that he regularly uses and engages and loves and has seen the Lord use, and is a very productive method. In fact, I was even talking with a couple other people from church, and I'm like, hey, what do you use for evangelism? I'm trying to look at some different methods, and I use the 3 circles. I use the 3 circles. I'm like, I got a 3 circles guy. I got one. I'm looking for others. But in here, Don is going to share the 3 circles, which is a really easy, quick way to give a comprehensive picture of the gospel. And you're going to hear from Don and how the Lord is he using him in that way. He's going to show you what it is. He's going to help you understand what it is. He's going to the method. He's going to give you some tools to learn it. He's going to give you some practice time to learn it. And so in this room, we're going to give him the big room because I think it's a really good method that if you haven't learned a method, it is a really good one that's been developed by the Southern Baptist North American Mission Board for sharing the gospel. And so you can stand here, or maybe you have heard it before, but you're not so comfortable with it. Then Don is going to be sharing about the 3 circles in here tonight. The other method we're going to talk about is in the 400 rooms, and Mike McCullough is going to be talking about using your story as a means of sharing the gospel. And I like what he is saying. It is how sometimes we think of testimony, but testimony is basically testifying who Christ is and what he's done in your life, which is your salvation testimony, but even what the Lord has done in your life recently. Remember, one of the ways that we talked about that is a wonderful opportunity to engage from gospel friendship into gospel conversation is asking someone their story, right? Building that trust, letting them share their story. And then a lot of times they'll ask to hear your story, right? Or if you hear about their week, then they will probably ask to hear about your week. And if you can be thoughtful and intentional about how to tell your story, whether it's your life story and testimony, whether it's what the Lord has done over the last week, in a way that is intentional to be connected with the gospel, that is a wonderful way to be prepared to be able to do evangelism. So I think both of these are very different methods, right? One is much more in that friendship, conversational vein and sharing stories, right? This one is just a clear method of maybe you're sharing stories and it's saying, hey, can I share one of the most important things with you about my life? Right? And really clear presentation of the different aspects of the gospel. So we're going to have those 2 times tonight. But before we split, I sent an email out, but just in case I didn't have your email or you didn't see your email, we made a schedule switch. So I wanted to announce that. Instead of our going out and doing evangelism next week, that's what we had originally said, is October 30th, we're going to go out and do evangelism. It's our time away from here. We're changing that because Kendrick Neal, who works with Disaster Relief, was supposed to do a breakout last week on how to share the gospel in trauma situations. That's what he does in disasters. And there was this collective from everyone who heard, because I think it would be really good. So I asked Kendrick, can you just come back and share with everybody on a night of advance how, just thinking of these trauma, difficult situations and how you share the gospel in the middle of that. So the available night he had was next Wednesday. So next Wednesday, we're having normal advance. Kendrick's going to teach how to share the gospel in trauma situations. Then the week after that, which I think is November 6th, maybe. Thank you, Bev. November 6th, that is when we will go out and do evangelism. Or if you've had other witnessing opportunities at other time, you can come here and we'll eat and we'll share about our opportunities and we'll pray together for those opportunities. And we'll have still kids advance and youth advance. And then our very last meeting is going to be that October 13th, and we'll end our semester talking about how to persevere, or it's November 13th, how to persevere in evangelism. Because it's tough. It's tough to keep focused on that. How do we keep going? So next week, Kendrick here, everybody here, gospel and trauma situations. Then we're going to do our time out to sharing the gospel or here sharing about the opportunities you've had. And then the very last week, November 13th, we will share about how to persevere in evangelism. So that is the schedule. And just a reminder for tonight, if you want to hear about the 3 circles with Dawn, stay in this room. If you want to think about using your story as a means of communicating and connecting to the gospel, Mike McCullough is going to be in the 400 rooms where you got your dinner tonight. So let's give just a couple minutes for you to split. And they have some, Mike has some handouts and Don has some blank papers for you, and he'll explain why when you guys go into your rooms.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? Is this thing working? You say you left it on. My name is Don. Okay. I'm going to show you, as the pastor said, a technique, if you want to call it that, for sharing the gospel message. The message is what we want to get out there, right? So, for most of us, probably the first thing we have to do is maybe even get over the fear of talking to people, right? Well, the good news for me is I'm a blabbermouth. I blabber on, and I may not say anything, but I find it very easy to talk to people. But I think that's something that is something that we all have to learn how to do to start the conversation with people. Now, just to start any conversation with people. So I'm going to just throw out a few things right at the start that from some past business dealings that I had, and it's an acronym called FORM, and it's F-O-R-M. So the F stands for family. So if you meet somebody and you don't know what to say, you never met them before, you get their name and you might say, hey, so who's in your family? How big is your family? So you can talk about those things. And then the next thing would be, what is your occupation? What do you do for a living? So nowadays, in the old days, I was an aviator. But currently, I tell people I'm a professional bike rider. So you do? Yeah, well, how much they pay you? Well, they don't pay me anything, but I still go out and ride 3 days a week, and I don't make any money. And the third thing is, what do you do for fun? What do you do for recreation? What does your family do for recreation? Okay. So those are just 3 things you can talk about to sort of break the ice with people that you maybe never met before, even. Okay. Then the last thing is the M, where you can get into the message. Okay, now for me, in terms of how to start down that road of the message, again, there's a comfort level to a certain extent with people, and people in your neighborhood or you've talked to a lot before. I like to ask a very singular question because it sort of opens up the table for everything else. And that question is, do you have any spiritual beliefs? Do you have any spiritual beliefs? And then you can just let the people talk for a little bit. They may tell you, any manner of things. What are your spiritual beliefs? Well, I believe there's a Mother Nature, and they may tell you, who knows what they're going to tell you, right? But once they get done, then you can start into sharing with them what I call the 3 circles. Okay. Now, what I want to do is lay a little more groundwork and say, the first thing I didn't do is there was paper around, and I was supposed to have somebody pass it out. I don't know where it went. Message. The M stands for message. Oh, here it is up here. Sorry. So I'm going to hand out paper to everybody so that you can. You want to. Oh yeah. Okay. Thank you. Take a few everywhere, okay, and I'll take some over here. So you have a writing utensil and some paper. I'm going to go through this thing called the 3 circles. You can watch, and then I'm going to let you attempt to share it with somebody else at your table. Well, it's not going to be perfect by any stretch, of course, and there's no such thing as perfect, but when I do it once, I'm going to ask for questions, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go through it again just so you can see it. Now, you're still not going to know it that well when you leave here tonight, but what I want you to know is if you go to Google or whatever you use to search on the internet and go to something called NPL, which stands for No Place Left. This was developed by an organization that desires to have no place left in the world that hasn't heard of Jesus, okay? and you Google and look for the 3 circles, what you will find is a 3-minute, 32-second video on a gentleman presenting what I'm going to present to you on the chalkboard right here on the eraser board, okay? So don't expect to have it down by any stretch tonight, but I'm introducing this concept now. Have any of you heard of this before or seen this before? Okay, yeah. I think, Kathy, did you too? I think. But anyway, okay, you didn't. That's right. You were gonna, but then you skipped out on me. But okay. Anyways, okay. So what I really desire for you to do is to write down No Place Left or NPL so that you can Google it and look for the 3 circles, because this is an entire training program that they have. But the only thing that I'm interested in showing you tonight is this thing called the 3 circles, so that you can share the gospel message with people you meet as you go along, okay? All right. So, like I said, I'm going to go through it once. When I get done, I'll probably ask questions if somebody has some questions, and then after we go through a few questions, then I'll erase it all. It won't sound exactly the same, and I'm going to go through it again just so you have an idea again what it's like. And then I feel a little remiss because I had originally planned to bring these stickers with me that I have on my phone, which is so handy. There's nothing like the opportunity when somebody says, "Hey, what's that on your phone?" Well, can I share that with you? Oh, yeah, sure. And ready-made opportunity to share Jesus with people. They want to hear about it. What is that? Oh, let me share that with you. But I have more stickers at home, and I would be glad to get some stickers to people if you like to put them on your phone. It's very handy. It gives you sort of almost unlimited opportunity to share with people. So, let me start out then. Now, it's a lot more difficult to write on the board and talking to this microphone at the same time, so you kind of gotta be with me a little bit here, okay? All right. If you watch the evening news, look at your Facebook feed, talk to your neighbors, interact with other people, you know that the world is broken, okay? The world is broken. There's death, there's suffering, there's decay, there's coronavirus, there's innumerable things that we see in the world that help us to understand that the world is broken. But originally, when God made the world, okay, you still can see some vestiges of beauty here, like a beautiful sunset, or maybe a baby, they look real beautiful, and you think, thank you, God, for that beauty that you made, okay? But what happened along the way is the very first people that walked on the earth, okay, decided they were going to walk away from God's perfect plan for the universe, okay? And when they did that, that is what caused the brokenness in the world. And that's why we have sin, and that's why there is sin in the world, because man walked away from God's perfect plan to start with, okay? Now, if you're like me, and I know in this vein you are, we don't like to be broken. There's nothing fun about being broken in the world. You see it all around you, and it's just painful to watch. But we don't like it there, so how do we try and get away from that? Well, some people figure they'll go get a good education, okay? They get a good education and move up in the world, get a bigger house, a better car. Maybe that will stop the pain from happening. Some people say, well, I'll just do some good deeds for people, and I'll maybe go to church and do some nice things and help people out, okay? And maybe that will help me escape the brokenness, okay? And then some people, they just really check out right. They take drugs, they take alcohol, they just basically sort of check out from the world in hopes that that'll help them with the brokenness in the world. But all these things are bungee cords. They just bungee you right back to the brokenness in the world. You can't escape it by doing that. But God knows that we're broken. God knows the world's broken, and he wanted to help us out with that. So what he said was, he did something for us that we can't do for ourselves, okay? I got to get a better pen here. Let me try this one here. What God said was, said, he sent his son down to earth, and he said, if you watched him die on the cross, and then he rose again after 3 days. And what God said is, if you will follow my son and believe in him, okay, and profess that you will follow him and make him the king of your life, he said, I will change your life and make you a new creation. Okay? So you become a new creation, and that will take you back to the original perfect plan that God had for your life at the beginning of the world. Okay? Now, the question is, where do you find yourself in this plan? Do you find yourself in the broken world? Or have you repented and decided to follow Jesus and have realized that Jesus died on the cross for you and rose again, made him the king of your life, and now you're back in that original plan that God had for you? Where do you find yourself? Are you in the broken, or are you been fixed and now in the perfect world? And you wait for their answer. They probably will say, well, I'm still in the broken world. Okay? Well, what's keeping you from changing your life by deciding to follow Jesus, okay, so that you can become that new creation that God intended for you? Okay? So if you want to do that, you can have them then say the prayer basically as we have up here. You just pray and say, Lord, I'm sorry that I left that perfect plan you had for my life, okay, and I broke my life and became part of the broken world. And then I'm asking you and telling you that I want to follow Jesus. I want him to be the Lord of my life so I can experience that perfect plan for my life that you had for me. So, and then you just lead them through that prayer, okay? So that, folks, is the 3 circles in probably about 4 minutes or 5 minutes, however long it took. So any questions that you might have about it for me right now? Any comments? Anything, Kathy? You have a gap? Yeah? Okay. Yeah. So he's praying. I don't draw him very good, but he's that is us. That's the person who's praying to receive Jesus. So the idea is that, that we accept God's forgiveness and his plan. So we pray for repentance, and that repentance is granted to us based upon the fact that Jesus came down, died on the cross, and rose again after 3 days. So that's what that is there. It's supposed to be somebody praying. Okay. So now I can't really stress enough. This is just maybe the first time you've seen this, and that you really need to look at this video. It's only 3 minutes and 30 seconds. And so when you go to this website or find it on YouTube and see it, you can see it time after time and get it ingrained in your head. And of course, there's nothing better after that than actually sharing it with people and learning by sharing. And every chance you get, I encourage you to talk to your friends, other people you know are Christians already. People you know. We're going to do that tonight here at your table. Have the opportunity just to write it out and practice it, because it's like anything else in the world that you have to learn how to do. Practice makes perfect. So the more times you can share this, the better you're going to become at sharing it with people. Okay. All right. Anybody else have any questions about the 3 circles itself? Yeah, Gary. Well, if they're, the answer to that for me is you're still in the broken world and you're still broken. You may be part of this group that sort of checks out, and I can't necessarily change their mind, but that doesn't change the fact that they're still broken, the world's still broken, and they're still broken. They're just checking out. So That's how I would answer that with them. But yeah, I would say to them, you're still broken, and there's a lot better life that God has planned for you than the good broken parts you have right now. I guess is the way I would describe it to them. But yeah, that's this group here. They're still no, there are. There's tons of people that but they're still broken. They may not want to admit it, but you and I know they're broken because we know that sin brings brokenness. And unless they've repented, and accepted Jesus, they're still broken. I don't care how nice their car looks or how nice their house looks or anything like that. So that's how they may shine you on, but that's their prerogative. But at least you've had an opportunity to share with them. Then I've shared with some people that were pretty well to do, and they're some were receptive and some just said, no, go ahead, I'm not interested. And that's faith. Some people are going to want to follow Jesus, and some people don't. They just want to go their own way and do what they want to do, in life. So, all right. Any other questions? Okay, I'm gonna erase this and do it one more time. It won't sound exactly the same, and I'm hoping that you wrote down this on your paper. You can take that paper with you so you can access online, how to find that and look at that video. It's only 3 minutes and 30 seconds. Now, when you present this to people, as you do it in your own way, you'll add things that you find beneficial from your own personal standpoint. So, and it also will probably, to some extent, be dependent upon what their background and where they come from, too. You can always add things in from that perspective also. So, all right. So, before I do that, though, since we do have some time, oh, yes, sir. Huh? Okay. So I think that's sort of a separate thing, but what comes to mind to me are those people who are the parable of the soils, okay, where they're excited at first, and then maybe it just doesn't last, okay, that's one. Or they want to grow, but then the cares of the world get in the way. Well, now I'm besides my faith, I'm really more interested in having money and having the nicer things, and the cares of life get in the way. That's just another one of the soil. So there's only so much you can do, and we're all responsible for our own salvation and our own faith. Now, you want to keep trying to share with him. You want to keep trying to bring him with you or bring him along. But in the end, he's the one that's going to have to make this decision. Is he going to follow Jesus, or is he not going to follow Jesus? So I don't know if that answers your question, but I think that's what we have for, sometimes in life, our kids and other people, they have to go through seasons. I've been a Christian since I was 15 years old. That's a long time. I can tell you that there have been times when I've run myself off the road, by not. I mean, I always believe in Jesus. Never did I ever not believe that Jesus was my Savior, and that, but there were times when I allowed myself to go off the road and wasn't following Him. And I think that can happen. That certainly can happen to people and young people too, because when you're younger, other things are competing for your time and your loyalty, so to speak. But I think for me as a Christian, when you're older, you realize all that stuff is stuff. It's just stuff. It's just stuff. And it doesn't really enhance my life at all like Jesus does. And so part of that comes with the wisdom of following Jesus for a long period of time, I think. But when you're younger, I flew airplanes at 500 miles an hour, 500 feet out of the ground. That was a lot of fun, let me tell you. It was a lot of fun to do. And I believed in Jesus, but I sort of had divided loyalties. And I think that can happen to anybody. And to young people, I think there's a proclivity maybe for it to happen more to them. But that's all I could, I guess, say about that. So what I'm going to do is draw this one more time. And do your best to kind of take in what you want to take in your thought process, and then we're gonna kind of pair off at tables and have you do the best that you can. Certainly it won't be great, I understand, but we're gonna do that tonight. So one person will do it, and then swap out and let the other person show the other person how to do it. So we'll have to end up with an even number of people. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Always start with the broken world. For me, I don't know if it's the broken world's just too easy to see out there nowadays. To me, it is. It's just too easy. It's just right there everywhere. So, yeah. Yeah, I did. That's the very first circle I drew was a picture of the. Then I went back. So I'll do it one more time for you, and I mean, then I really do want everybody to at least have a shot at doing it with some other person. So let me start out again here. Okay. I guess the first thing is get a pen that works. Okay. So if you look on TV, if you look on TV or you look at your Facebook feed, talk to your neighbors and friends, you know that the world is broken. The world is broken. There's death, there's disease, there's suffering, there's pain. Quite often, everywhere you look, there is that kind of thing, okay? But when God made the world, He made a perfect world. And you still can see some vestiges of the perfect world. You can see it in beautiful mountains, a beautiful sunset, maybe the crying of a baby, your baby or somebody else's baby, or your grandchild in my case, And you realize that the world that God made was beautiful and it was perfect. But the very first people that walked the earth, okay, they decided to walk away from God's plan, okay? And when they did that, that's how the world got broken. We call that sin. Okay, so people walked away from God and sinned, and that's how sin came into the world, and that's why there's sin in the world today, the idea of sinfulness. Okay? But people don't like living in a broken world. There's a lot of pain, right? And so people have a lot of different ways they like to deal with that pain. One way is, hey, if I go to school or I get a great job, maybe that will break me away from the broken world and the pain that's there. And some people say, if I just go out and help a lot of people, or I go to church and I help people there, maybe that'll get me away from the broken world. Well, that's good. It's good to do those things. It doesn't keep you away from the brokenness. Some people just say, hey, I don't like all this brokenness. So I'm going to take drugs. I'm going to take alcohol. I can't live in this world. I'm going to take my life. Right? Sometimes that's how people deal with the broken world. Okay, but all those things are just bungee cords, and they just bungee you right back to the broken world. Okay, But God saw us down here in our misery, and he said, I have a way out of the broken world for you people. He said, if you will follow my son, who I sent down to the earth, and he died on the cross. 3 days after that, he rose again. He said, if you will make him the Lord of your life, the King of your life, okay, I will change that for you. And when that happens, you will become a new creation. That's symbolized by the little dashes here. I'm going to make a new creation out of you so that you will be put back into the original perfect plan for your life that I had planned for you. Okay? So the question I have for you right now is, do you find yourself in the broken world still? Or have you repented and decided to follow Jesus, okay, made him the king of your life, okay, and now you become that new creation? So are you still in the broken world, or have you been made new again by Jesus? And you wait for their answer. Well, where would you like to be? Okay, would you like to stay in the broken world, or would you like to be put back into the position that God originally had intended for your life? You like to be over here. Well, that's great. So, when I was in this position, I just prayed a prayer. I said, God, I'm sorry that I walked away from your perfect plan for my life, okay? And I've helped break the world, and I know that my world was broken. But I'd like to follow your son, Jesus. I'd like to have him be the king of my life so that I can become that new creation, so that I can experience that perfect world you had for me originally. And if they want to, is there anything keeping you from making that decision tonight? Sometimes people will say, I have no problem, let's make that decision now. Some people will say, well, I need to think about it a little more, or I don't understand it, and then you can spend more time with them and talk with them, and you might even show them some scriptures along the way too. So, all right, that's the 3 circles in about 3 or 4 minutes or 5 minutes. Any other questions come up? Well, I went through it the second time. Carrie? We're just that's the way they started. Again, for me, it's the idea that you've got them to see at the start that the world is broken. Okay, but Jeff? Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Well, we back up to that. So I don't know. That's the way it's presented, and I'm not. I don't know if. Yeah. I think, again, we've talked both ways, but as somebody has said, some people don't recognize that there was a perfect world to begin with, So, yeah, you can't imagine that. They can't grasp it. They just think this is the way life's been forever, And so for me, I start there because it's easy for them to see that the world is broken. It's probably hard for some people to ever think that the world was ever perfect. So, that, right. They may check out. They may check out right away. So, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. All right, I don't want to. We could talk more, I guess, but what I really want us to do is to break up into groups of two, and go ahead and do your best at doing that presentation. I know, again, it's you got pretty skimpy information only from seeing it twice, but I highly encourage you, when you go home and watch this video 3 or 4 times, and practice on your wife or your neighbor or anybody, you're going to get pretty good at it in the end. So, all right, can we break up into groups of two and go ahead and practice with somebody? Go ahead and do it. We've got 15 minutes, so it may take you 5 minutes the first time to kind of stumble. So we should have plenty of time if everybody breaks up in groups of two and go ahead and practice sharing it. If you have a question along the way, you can yell at me and I can and help out.